Hi, and welcome back to I Bloody Love Orange. My name's Josh.
And I'm Jess, and this is our true crime
We're
podcast.
back, baby!
We're back, baby. Okay, so obviously we had the Black Lives Matter discussion in
We
our
did. We had a
mini-sode.
yeah, we had a short break last Saturday. So thanks for waiting. It was just a
Yeah, we
little
put out a statement, and then on our Wednesday mini-sode, we had a little discussion for about 10 minutes. Also, I need to say, I wrote this on our page, on our Twitter page, and on our Facebook page, but I got confused between Lush supporting Trump. That was Bed Bath and Beyond that support Trump.
okay.
But Lush supported the police in the UK.
Yes, I saw they were
Only the
giving
UK,
packages.
right, only the UK Lush. And
Okay.
they chose to support the police rather than make a stand for Black Lives Matter, um, which I think is equally at this point is taking a stand on the wrong side. That's my
Ye-
opinion.
Yeah, I mean,
That's my opinion.
perhaps it would have been better of them if they wanted to. I mean, we talked about this the other day about sitting on the fence, right? And if they
Hmm.
wanted to sit on the fence, perhaps they should have given it to like both sides of the aisle. If they wanted to be like, oh, we're not going to take any kind of stand. But this,
Uh
to
huh.
me, you can't deny that this is a stand. You can't deny
Yeah,
they're
that is.
taking a position here, right?
Yeah. So anyway, I just wanted to correct that. I didn't want to like put out misinformation in there that I was misinformed or like I got confused. So
Sure,
yeah, it wasn't that they support Trump, it was that they support the police, but only in the UK.
sure.
Um, yeah, so that's my little correction on that.
Cool.
But I also wanted to ask you about this, okay? So this is happening in the UK at the moment. It's a big thing at the
Ooh,
moment.
okay.
So basically, like Netflix and BritBox, which is like a UK. Do you know about BritBox
I
in
do, I
in
do.
Japan? It's like a TV streaming services for like lots of UK shows and stuff. And they've
Okay.
taken off Come Fly With Me.
Yes.
And what's the other one that they do that I
Little
can't remember
Britain.
the name of? Little Britain. And they've taken off an episode of Faulty Towers. And then that is because they openly use blackface, which is not right.
Yeah.
Even at the time that Come Fly With Me in Little Britain was made, I would argue that's not right.
Yeah.
Um, I actually never watched it because I didn't like it. I didn't think it was funny. I'm not saying it was because of that. I'm
Mm,
just saying that, like, I wasn't part of the generation that loved it when it came out because I didn't find it funny.
sure.
But Faulty Towers has caused a lot of arguments because people are saying that's a British classic and it's one of the funniest series ever made. But even John Cleese himself has said that the episode in question is not right in today's current situation, and he said it should be taken away. But people are kicking off about it. So, what's happened now that people are kicking more off about is that they're trying to take down Gavin and Stacey. Can
Okay.
you think of one racist incident that happens in Gavin and Stacey?
Oh my gosh. Not really.
So they're trying. The argument is that calling a character Chinese Alan is racist.
Ah, okay.
But the premise behind it is that he orders a lot of Chinese. He's not even Chinese himself. He orders a lot of Chinese. So they call him Chinese Alan. I personally don't think that's racist.
Right.
I think it's just because it's called a Chinese, people are saying like, "Oh, that's racist. You can't use that." But I don't agree with that. I don't think that's a racist act when it's not about a country. It's not about a culture. It's about a food that's been in the UK for so long. It's such a part of like UK culture as well. They don't call him like the C word,
Right.
that I won't repeat right now, that
Right.
a lot of people say in the UK.
Right.
When they order Chinese and they say that other word,
Yeah.
they don't call him that.
So,
And it's like calling someone like it's like calling my granddad like Chippy Granddad because he loves fish and chips.
right. So this is an interesting question, and I'm glad you've asked this actually because I mean, very obviously, I fall, like I said, very left. I am very, very, very left when it comes to my politics and my policies and how I feel. I'm also that twat that sits down and plays devil advocate with anybody because I like to challenge what we're like thinking. Like, let's look at the other side of something. Let's see how they feel about it. Let's even if it's not something I'm even into, I'll fight for. This is like the like law degraded. I'm just fighting for the case
Yeah.
of like I just want to check that our point is the correct one. So
Uh-huh.
I do think this is an interesting conversation, and I do have 2 points that I would make for this.
Mm-hmm.
One, I would say that things like Little Britain and Come Fly With Me and that sketch show, I I don't think it's appropriate for two white men to play black characters, even though they're playing black stereotypical characters. I think it would have been better for them to just bring in those actors, and you could.
Yeah.
We have in the UK fantastic people of colour who are comedians. It would not have been
Yeah,
difficult to be
loads.
like join the sketch show, come in and do that. So I think that would have been better.
Mm-hmm.
I do appreciate that when they did that show, they were targeting everyone, and I understand.
Yeah,
I completely
100%.
understand gay people, white people, even racist. Some of the things they were doing, I understand, was like, it was to play on the racist. Do you know what I mean? Some people were
Mm-hmm.
like, but I don't think using blackface is ever a clever thing to do. I think if
Appropriate.
you're
It's
going to
not.
make
It's
a
not
joke,
good.
right, we should make jokes, that punch upwards or at ourselves. You have
Yeah.
to punch up. Punching down, I don't appreciate. I don't think when you've already got this marginalised community, and blackface has a horrific history where there's more
Mm-hmm.
to it than just people putting blackface. People used to do it and use these huge stereotypes to degrade people, right? So I don't agree
Yeah.
with that at all. Blackface in those situations. When it comes to things like Gavin and Stacey, I would appreciate that if Chinese people, or if anyone watched it and felt very offended.
Yeah.
If you watched it and there was a gay joke, for example, and I felt, and it really upset me,
Yeah.
fair enough. Take it down. We are at a point where we're learning, and let's grow from it. And if this upsets
Yeah.
a certain sector of people, let's get rid of it. However, what I would say is that it does seem that we're taking it slightly out of context, because it wasn't
Yes.
to be used as a degrading or attacking thing. I don't think
No.
that was their premise, right? So
Yeah.
I can
Yeah.
see both. If you
Mhm.
watch it now and you're like, wow, I really don't like them using this trope. I don't like it anymore. Fair enough.
Yeah.
I just hope it's not. I hope it's not like gaslighting. Like, hey, this is gonna happen. This is gonna happen. This is gonna happen. This is gonna. I hope that we can truly look at something and go, right, this is derogatory and offensive, and we don't like it. I hope, and I'm not going to assume because I don't know. I hope it's not people just being like, well, if I can't have, it's like people saying, oh, if Little Britain gets taken off for this, why isn't white chicks being taken off for
This
this?
is exactly my point, right? So basically, the only people so far that I have seen who are like saying, "Oh, take down Gavin and Stacey, then take down Gavin and Stacey because they're racist." The only people who have done that I have seen so far are the people who are offended that Faulty Towers has been taken down,
That's the problem.
and
is
they're
that
like,
they
"Oh, well, if
want-
we can't have what we want,
Yes.
you can't have anything."
they want
That's why I have a problem with it.
Yeah, they want to brandish everything. And my opinion is that there are some things that I don't want to be shown anymore. There are some things I think
Yeah,
actually they should be shown, like Gone with the Wind. I believe Gone with the Wind should be shown. I just think it should
for
come
educational purposes.
I think it should come with a banner at the start. I think it should come much like 13 Reasons Why. It should come with a very clear
Right.
section at
A
the start
warning.
that tells you this depiction is from such and such a time. It depicts things in a romanticised way. This is not to be used as some sort of reference to how it was at the time. This is not a reflection of what it was like at the time. If you want more information, go to and
Right,
let's read
exactly.
about the true history. And I think that would be better.
Also, you just reminded me as well, like, you said about Gone with the Wind, and I was thinking of A Song of the South. You know, the Disney film that's, like,
Yes.
mega controversial. And now
Yes.
you can't watch it. You can't get it on video. You can't watch it. I think that should be used. You couldn't watch it at home, but you should be able to watch it in school and be educated about why this was wrong at the time. And also there's because this is very us, it's very us related. Because one of our favourite rides at Disney is Splash Mountain,
Yeah.
which is based on A Song of the South.
Mhm.
And we knew that it was like a controversial thing, and it was racist at the time and stuff like that, and you know, it's racist. But we still go on the ride and we still enjoy it, and we don't see that racist connotation whilst on the ride. Now, there's talk of changing the ride. There's talk of like completely rebranding that ride. And I agree with that. But I think there should be a section in Disneyland that is dedicated to the old ride and educational for
Yeah, I
children.
agree.
This used to be based on a Song of the South. This is the problems that we have with the Song of the South in this time, and this is how we've learned to adapt. And if they are going to change it, I think they should change it to, they should rebrand it to A Princess and the Frog,
Yeah.
which is about a black woman
Yeah.
achieving her goals and getting her dreams despite her skin colour in a time where it was not, you know, common for that to happen. Also, it would just suit because it's about the bayou and it's about Louisiana, and you could have all the music still and the jazz instead of having like the southern. Well, it's still southern, but you know, you could have the jazz music and stuff.
I think
What do
you
you think
make.
about that?
Actually, I think you make a really good point in that. I like that. The thing I like about something like that is that, like, instead of erasing it completely, pretending like
Yeah.
it never happened, I think it would be nice for Disney to take ownership of it and to say,
Yeah.
we took this ride, we've dismantled this ride, or we have rebranded this ride because we
Yeah.
are ashamed of how we depicted black people in this movie, and we would encourage you to watch it with that in mind, knowing that the stereotypes in it are wrong, knowing that it doesn't represent its time very well, that it sort of fantasizes on the situation that was actually happening. I think it's a we should be learning from these things and progressing.
Like, you know, there's so much opportunity in Disneyland and Disney World. Like, if you come out of that ride, if it's a rebranded ride, and then you come out and you have the queue and they have that, like, photo section,
Yeah.
or they have the gift shop, turn that into a historical, you know, like a mini museum,
Yeah.
you know, and,
That's
like,
quite a
educate
wonderful idea.
people.
You need to
Yeah,
write
like,
to
that's what they should
Disney.
do. I need to work for Disney because I could just, like, you know, I could lift Disney to a new level. Like, you know, I'm just Disney queen, you know. But, like, the worst thing about that is when you realise that Splash Mountain wasn't built, like, a long time ago.
No.
Splash Mountain was originated in the 80s. Like, that was when the idea came up. That was long after A Song of the South was already deemed racist. So it was a weird thing, and that's something they could put in their mini museum, is that, like, why did we even choose this as a subject? Because it was already controversial. You know?
Yeah.
Weird, isn't it?
Yeah, it is weird, but I think you bring up some really good points. I think it's we're in a period now where we really should be we really should be listening to each other, and we should be taking note of, you know, if this statue upsets you, if this film upsets you, tell me why and let me understand, and so that I don't ever use it. I'm never going to be complicit. If someone says it around me, I'm not only going to, you know, stand against it, I'm going to actively, you know, be anti-racist. I think we have this point in time now, we've got this wonderful opportunity to be like, let's take ownership of the wrongs, and let's really
and we should
try and educate ourselves, and, you know, school curriculums, let's change them, let's add the true history.
Do you know what? Especially like the UK. Like, I know everyone needs to change their school curriculum and, like, update it to what actually happened, but the UK, like 90% of the UK believes that the UK is not racist because it's not taught in our schools. I learned like a tiny bit about the slave trade, okay? I was under the impression in school, because my teacher never told me, this was explicitly like the UK started this. You know, it was so generalised that I didn't even know that it was like the UK started this. And they were all sent to America, so we were sort of taught to blame America. We were like, oh, look at them, they were using the slaves. It wasn't that, like, British people were going to capture the slaves and take them over there to sell them.
And,
I wasn't taught that. I mean, I don't know if it was just me not listening.
No, because I took history, and in my history lessons, I was never taught that we absolutely destroyed India. You know, I was never
Churchill?
taught about, it's absolutely horrific what we did, and I feel utter shame that, you know, I come from a country that you know, stands on the back of other countries, because we're fortunate, and the privileges we
are not
have
taught
came
that here,
from,
and
we should be.
is not okay. Like, it is not okay. We should be taught about the wrongs that we did because
Yeah.
it's part of our history. It shouldn't be censored to make us feel better about ourselves and to make this country seem like greater than it is. It's not.
Yeah.
It's
Truth.
disgusting. And, like, kids have a right
Truth.
to know their history,
Yeah.
you
No.
know?
Well, instead of having this shame over it, let's just be truthful about it. Let's learn from it. And the great thing about learning these things is that you have a chance to change it. And the
Yeah.
only thing you can do as an ancestor of this kind of, you know, this awful atrocities that have happened, the best thing you can do is make sure it doesn't happen again and
Yeah.
change what needs to be changed and get laws changed and get curriculums changed and I mean, I'm sure we'll be talking about this topic for longer to come because we're both very passionate about it. But
Yeah.
I would implore everyone to use your voice in whatever way you want to be honest. But
Uh-huh.
let's have a open conversation and let's be civil about it and we should change has got to happen.
It's got to
And can I
happen.
just say one thing before, unless you have anything else to say, I would love to say one thing before we finish talking about the Black Lives Matter movement,
Mm.
and that is that poor Breonna Taylor's, sorry, no, poor Breonna Taylor
Mm.
still has no justice. Those men
I
are
know.
still free. They've not been arrested. A law has
They've
just been
passed her
passed.
law,
Yep, to
but
say
they
that you
haven't
can't.
arrested the people that killed her.
Right, you can't enter without knocking. That is a wonderful progress, but those men need to be in a court, face to face with what they have done. And please, let's keep on top of this. We can't let this just like drift away. Let's
Yeah.
stay on top of it. You know.
Right.
Also, can I bring up one more topic with you? And
Yeah.
I'm sorry we're almost at 20 minutes, but I need to ask Jess this very particularly because it has to do with somebody that I think she's profoundly knowledgeable on and that she appreciates. I want to talk to you about J.K. Rowling's comments on
Oh my
transgender
god.
people. You don't
Right.
have to
I'm
go
so
too
glad you
into
brought that up.
detail, but can you? I know you're a big Harry Potter fan. I, of course,
Mm-hmm.
LGBTQ plus community. I feel very strongly about this. I'm sure most people will know.
Oh,
I'm obviously left on it.
I am fuming about this. I feel disgusted in her. To be honest, I never liked her. I love Harry Potter. I
Yeah,
love the books. They're a massive part of my like childhood. They basically saved my life at one point when I was so depressed and anxious and all I could do was watch Harry Potter and that was the only thing that was making me feel better and stuff like that. So, I have a lot of like, I'm a huge fan. But there's just something about her that I just never liked. And I always tried to get over it thinking like, oh, she's a woman and she's like now very powerful and she's written this. And I always thought it was quite inclusive, like Harry Potter was very inclusive. And it's only I realise now that actually it's really not. It's so not inclusive and I actually feel very ashamed of it in a way. So the things that she's said recently on Twitter being very openly anti-trans, I think is disgusting and I think she needs to really educate herself and get off her fucking high horse. I think just because you're a rich woman now and you're very powerful and influential and you believe in one thing because you're misinformed does not give you the right to diminish an entire community of
community.
people.
I
It
mean,
is repulsive, it's disgusting.
it's exactly
And I
what I just
stand
said.
with like
Punching down.
all the actors and the people that were involved in Harry Potter that have come to apologize and say like I'm sorry, but I do not agree with this. Like Daniel Radcliffe, Emma Watson, Eddie Redmayne, they've all come to say, no, I cannot not make a comment about this. And I stand with them. It's the same with me. Like, I cannot not make a comment. I love Harry Potter, but I will ditch that so hard if she keeps on.
I
Like, it's a
think it's
huge
a
part of my life,
shame.
but I do not want to be a part of something that diminishes an entire community of people. And I feel really sad for, like, the whole Harry Potter community because there's so many people who absolutely adore those books.
Yeah.
It's a huge part of, like, especially the British culture. It's a massive part of British culture. And it is shameful that she has done this, I
It's a
think.
shame to exclude a group like that. And the comments that she made, I read the post that she put on her website, and I was really upset by it. I,
Do you know what?
I think that we
I,
need allies, and I think that women should be boosting other women. and it doesn't
Right.
matter if you were born with genitals or not. I think, and I'm not transgender. I can't imagine what it takes to
Yeah.
administer drugs to yourself and to admit to yourself that you're just like trapped in this wrong body. But I can speak for the fact that when I was younger, I had a really difficult time when I was, just before I came out. It absolutely tortured me. It was one of the
Yeah.
worst things to admit to myself that I was gay, because
Right.
it was so frightening. It was going to change my entire life. The way people looked at me. And even to this day, me and my homosexuality, it affects me, I think, more than I think, in terms of like, I not only if you know me very personally, like someone like Jess does,
Mm.
you will have seen a side of me that's very natural to me.
Mhm.
However, if you don't know me very well, you will have seen a almost like a cartoon character of myself, as like, when I feel stressed, or if I feel nervous, or if people don't know me, I am so extra camp as like a defense mechanism. It
Yeah.
takes the teeth out of anything you say to me if I am extra camp. So if I go in and I can rat tat tat and like, drop to the floor and death drop and do all this kind of, and I can really show off my queerness. For
God, I
me, it's
can't
like a
wait for you to do a death drop
protection.
in front of me.
It's like a
Yeah.
protection. Whereas when you
Yeah.
really know me, that's not really who I am. I'm not like
No,
that
you're
really
you're
ever the
not
time.
like that at all.
But
When
it
it's
does
just me and
mean
you,
that
you're so calm and you're so like down to earth. And then I always said this to you, like I never ever held it against you, but I always said to you, like, you don't have to do that, Josh. Like, you don't have to put on this personality that you're not. Like, it is
yes,
a part of you in a way, but at the same time, it's not the natural you. And it's completely up to you, and I would never ever hold it against you. If that was what makes you feel safe, go for it.
it's
But as long as I'm there, you don't ever, ever have to like
it's
do
something
that,
I've tried
because
to
if
dull down.
anyone mentions something to you, I will literally throat punch them so
I
hard.
know, I know.
I will literally take my fist to their throat and put them on the ground. Okay?
It's it's shocking. It's still, and when she came out with what she said, it really upset me, because
Me
I can't
too.
imagine being disenfranchised by
Oh,
somebody
I
that
was
I
so
looked up
angry.
to, and
Yeah.
and I know from my own personal experience that it's still the crap I got. I mean, before I came
Mhm.
out as being gay, I got called names, but I was not. I don't think I was bullied very badly. I was never beat up or anything for being gay. A lot of people were very
Yeah.
okay with it, but
I think
the
we were
inner
lucky
turmoil,
in a way that the age that we were in, the
yeah,
change in time, helped us. Some,
the
like,
the inner the inner hatred I had for myself, which has taken a
yeah.
long time for me to deal with, but it still does mean that sometimes I'm very nervous to show. I, I, it's just my mechanism of being like, hey, I know I'm gay. Like, you don't have to, sit and judge me or be weird with me about it. Like, I know I can, come in, and gradually, as I'm getting older, it's peeling off me a bit. I can see, but
Yeah,
I would
definitely.
recommend, we're in time. We have enough
I also
shit to
want to.
deal
I
with.
want to mention,
Let's all be nice
in
to each
in
other.
like, in lieu of that, I also want to mention that I honestly cannot say that I understand where she's coming from. I don't understand this offense that she's taking from, because it all stemmed from an article where they wrote people who menstruate rather than women.
Yeah.
And I cannot understand the offense that she's taken there, because I, as a woman who has menstruated, I have never ever took it upon myself to be offended by someone who like does not identify as a woman who menstruates.
Well, also, I know
Why
that
on
me and
earth is that
you,
offensive?
we have a very feminist, and I am, very, uh, women
I
and
know what you're
women's
saying, like,
rights are very important
yeah,
to me. I get very offended when I wouldn't,
it's at the forefront of our lives. I would
yeah,
say that we're very, like, we're quite active in that community. Like, we're very active feminists,
but I
and
don't see, Jess. I
and
don't see,
I just don't understand.
unfortunately.
And you know what, as well, like, all this has come about, and like all the J.K. Rowling stuff has set all the people that hate trans, like, it's like they've got a voice, and I hate that. Do you know what? Like, if I see one more comment, just like, oh, I'm afraid if I go to the, like, ladies' room that someone trans in there will attack me. Get out. I have never, ever been afraid of a trans person. I have no issues with a trans person using a ladies' toilet in the slightest. You know who I'm afraid of? White straight men. That's who scares me. That's who scares me on a daily basis. And that's who people need to be fucking afraid of. Not trans people. Trans people are just trying to live their lives as who they are.
Yeah.
Come in and use my fucking toilet in my house, trans people. Honestly, come to my house. Because I will protect you with everything that I am. But a white straight man, no. They are the scary ones. And they are the ones that need to be taken down a peg. Okay?
Yeah.
And that's what I truly believe. I
Oh.
truly, truly believe.
That really, I mean, I'm not going to say any more on that because that took me to church. That was beautiful. I actually almost teared up because I'm glad you can be so candid about it because it's exactly how we feel. It's how we've always felt, and I think you articulate it so well. So I ain't saying nothing, but maybe we should take a little break and then come back with your takeover.
With a real one, with a real podcast, rather than us just like talking about things angrily.
Sorry, right, we'll be right back.
Okay, welcome back. So today we're gonna actually do a Japan special.
Ooh.
Yeah, we're gonna do a Japan special, which we promised a long time ago.
Yeah.
But you know, other things took control, and other things were more important at the time. So, but first of all, we had a question on Twitter.
We did such a long time ago. I'm so sorry.
It was a long time ago. Yeah, we're really sorry. Yeah, it was from someone called Karen, wasn't it? And she asked about being LGBT plus in Japan.
Yeah.
Because obviously Josh still lives in Japan. Mm-hmm. And she also asked me what I miss in Japan. But what we're going to do is Josh is going to answer first.
Cool.
His little question. And then we'll go into like the crimes that I found that happened in Japan. Mm-hmm. And I'll be more specific later. But first of all, Josh.
Yes.
What's it like being LGBTQ plus in Japan?
Yeah, Karen, that is a nice question, actually. And I don't think people ask me that often, so it's quite interesting. So, very, 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 very quickly, I would say that when I first got here, I was very nervous about it, so much to the point that I asked my boss at the time, like, how should I approach my, like, I don't know, being gay and with my work colleagues and stuff. And I was not told, but I was always kind of like, from friends and everyone, people would sort of suggest that I just keep it to myself, and that's okay. But I have never been ashamed of who I am. So I think after my first year, I couldn't hold it anymore. Like I couldn't hide anymore, and so when I felt comfortable, and that's when you when you feel comfortable, that's when I just came out to everybody, and it was very liberating. It was like coming out again, because I'd lived here and not many people knew me, and the only people that did know me didn't really know this side of me. It was just liberating. People were really wonderful about it. I've never felt uncomfortable. No one's ever made me feel uncomfortable. I am aware that the laws here don't allow me to get married or adopt or anything. I know that I've sacrificed some rights that I would have back in the UK, but oddly enough, I haven't felt, as a gay person, I haven't felt ever threatened or uncomfortable being here, ever. I have been in situations that have made me uncomfortable, as everywhere in the world, I've been like that. But it was, for me, if I'm completely honest, when I lived in the UK, I was younger. I was, 23 when I last lived in the UK? When I was younger, it was terrifying. I was so scared that someone was going to know and they were going to shout something at me. I was shouted at in one of my hometowns. I used to get people say stuff to me all the time. I was bullied at work for a time, and, I had crap happen. But here, I've never faced anything like that. That's not to say that people probably don't talk about me. I'm sure that they do. But people have met my boyfriend, and I've met people from young ages all the way up to like 70s, and everyone has seemed so inclusive. And actually, it was the first time that I have been to a gay pride was in Japan, and it was very, very liberating. And I must say that it helped me. Can I just say that if you're not gay and you're listening to this, being an ally to a gay person is one of the most powerful things you can do for someone. Jess, when I was here, I know we talk about how fucking friendship, and I know I like suck her tits every time we're on here, but I swear on everything, her strength, this is going to upset me saying this, her strength in her conviction of believing that gay people are equal, her fighting for my right to be as open and free, and her being so honest about we can go to gay pride and nothing would happen to you. I'd never felt so safe with a friend. Her as a straight woman, and there were times where she'd be like, I don't, someone called me a lesbian, I don't even care. Someone could say this, I don't even care. She's always been the biggest ally to me. That literally helped me grow as a person. You don't even understand. From the first year I was here that we went to Pride together, you wore a wristband. You told everyone you knew a gay person. You wore a symbol that shows you are different in a country where difference isn't usually like a wonderful thing.
Mm-hmm.
I can't tell you how much having an ally like that was really upset to me, really important to me, helped me to become so comfortable with myself. So yeah, living in Japan, it was great. I met my best friend here. I've never been persecuted for it, and people have, most of all, everyone's been supportive. It's been great. I'm just hoping that in the future, my rights. I hope I can marry the man that I love and have babies. Maybe, I don't know. Babies are kind of gross sometimes.
Yeah. And on the creepy kids things we say, like, that's like put me off. That's put me off.
Sorry to get emotional. I didn't realize until I started talking that I was going to get emotional during that.
Yeah.
But,
no, it's okay.
Yeah, that's the truth.
It is emotional. It's an emotional subject. Is who you are and how, being who you are shouldn't mean that people get to discriminate against you. That's not right. That's not okay. And I will always fight for your rights. Yeah, there will never be a day that I don't fight for those rights. Never.
Oh my god, what a terrible question. Karen, why did you do this to me? You come in for my wig. No, she's a very good advocate, and I think that really helped me. It was wonderful. Be an advocate for your gay friends. They need you.
Yeah, exactly. That is a really good point, though, is that they do need us. And they're sad. As sad as that is, I will be there, like, whenever, Okay, let's bring this mood right back to crime.
Yes,
okay?
Give us the crime.
Right, okay, so this is a bit of a different podcast. We're going to do a Japan special, which we've already started with that. But also, these specific crimes happened in our town that we lived in Japan, the times that we were there. Okay?
I can't wait for this.
So we lived in this town when this happened. This is how insane this is. And do you know what's more insane is that, like, every time I think about this, it's just crazy. Because when you look, on Wikipedia, there's a list of, like, the major crimes that happened in Japan, right? When you look at that list, the last 3 all happened in our town the time that we were there. Major incidents, not just like, a backstreet crime. No, not just backstreet's back, all right. No, major crimes.
Yeah,
okay,
someone's coming for you.
Literally, I feel like I cursed Japan. I feel like I came in and Japan was like, do you know what? This fat girl's here. we gotta do some crimes.
Do you know what we need? An intense crime spree.
So we're going to talk more personally about these crimes. So the first one is kind of different to the other two because there's more information on this one. And also, Josh didn't live in the town when this happened. So when we first moved to Japan, Josh lived really far north and I lived like near Tokyo. And we spent that whole year like fighting for one of us to get moved. Wasn't it? We were just like constantly like on our boss's case, like we need to move. One of us needs to get moved. So this happened when I lived in the town and Josh lived really far away. But I remember texting him in real time, just like, oh my God, shit's going down. I don't know what it is. And I didn't know until the next morning. So here's what it was. Okay, so let me find the date first. It was in July, wasn't it? Right, so on July 26th in 2016, a 26-year-old man identified as Satoshi Uematsu a former employee of a care facility used a hammer to break into the care centre, and he tied up a staff member, took their keys, went room to room, stabbed the victims in their necks as they slept, and then left. Right?
Oh,
So
so insane.
that's the premise. That's the crime that happened.
Okay.
So basically, this residential care home is for severely disabled people who have mental disabilities and physical disabilities, and they all live in this home. At the end of April 2016, just like, before this happened, there was 149 residents that lived there. So it's a fairly big care facility. It's in a really nice area. So it's called Sukui Lily Garden. That's what it's called. And it's sort of on the edge. It's on a riverbank of the Sagami River, which is like the big river that runs through the town. Well, the town that we live in, or I lived in, that you live in, it's huge. It's classed as a town, but it's the size of a city. It's massive.
It's huge.
And like it has lots of it's hard to explain. Like, what would you call like an area of a town? It's not a village, because that's a
we're in
village.
like a suburb of Tokyo, right?
Right, yeah. So there's lots of different areas,
Yeah.
To this huge city-like town.
Yeah.
And it covers a lot of area. So basically, the Sagami River is this massive river that runs through it, and this facility was on the riverbank of this river, and also it was surrounded by forest. So it was a very secluded, lovely area, but you can't be too secluded in this city because it's too busy.
Yeah.
So although it seems secluded, it's still close to a station, it's still close to bus routes, and down the road would be like a mall.
Mm.
And this happened to be, although it was quite a distance from where I used to live, it happened to be on the same main road. So if you kept going from where I lived down that main road, you would come across this facility. So this happened at about 2:30 in the morning. And when this happened, I heard, because I was awake, because I have like a lot of insomnia that comes and goes. So I was awake at this point, and it was at that summer, that I was just awake all night, every night.
So hot.
Yeah, and it was so hot, and it was the first summer in Japan, and I was just watching The Walking Dead, living my life. And it was like 2:30, and all I heard for about an hour was sirens just going down that road, and it was just constant. And then one would go into the distance, and then you could hear another one coming from the other direction. So before the one had even gone, there was another one that was getting louder to go past, and then that would go, and then there was another one. And it was all these different kinds of sirens. It was like police and and ambulances and stuff. So let's go a bit more into the crime. So basically,
I know, I have so many questions already. I'm like bursting.
So Satoshi Uematsu was born in 1990, and he used to work at the care home. His father was an elementary school art teacher, and he had trained, no, his father, Uematsu, had trained to work as an elementary school teacher as well.
Okay.
So he possibly could have been a teacher. Okay. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
We could have worked with him.
Oh.
Yeah. We could have worked with his dad. Who knows?
Yeah.
Okay, so he lived in his house with his parents, but they moved away at some point, and he remained there alone. And he resigned from working at the facility in February 2016, having been employed there for over 3 years.
Okay.
So he worked there for a long time. In February 2016, he attempted to hand deliver to a guy called Tadadori Oshima. No, that's not even it. Tadamori Oshima, the Speaker of the House of Representatives of Japan. Okay, so, a high-up government official. He attempted to hand deliver at his home in Tokyo a letter, but was prevented from doing so by security. He returned the following day, and this time he left the letter with the security guards. His letter was read, and it appealed for the legalization of ending the lives of those with multiple disabilities in cases where it was requested by their guardians. And he asked for Oshima's assistance in delivering his message to the Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe. And he wrote it. This is a quote from the letter. start quote, I envision a world where a person with multiple disabilities can be euthanized with an agreement from the guardians when it is difficult for the person to carry out household and social activities, end quote. He also wrote that the killings of the disabled would be, start quote, for the sake of Japan and world peace, end quote. And he also wrote about it being a global economy benefit and would prevent World War III for some reason.
Oh, I mean, that's awful.
Right.
And also, peace. What were these poor people doing? They weren't, like, plotting, you know.
I know. After signing his name, the letter proceeded to detail an offer to target 2 facilities housing the disabled, in reference to the 2 residential buildings in which he later committed the crime.
Great.
Okay. He went on to appeal for certain conditions in exchange for committing the act. So in the first half of the message, he said that he could kill 460 people himself. And in the second half, the number he gave was 260. He added that the staff would be
less confidence in himself the second time.
I know. He was writing out the letter, and he was just like, do you know what? I think I may have overshot this bit. I'll bring this back down. But he said in the letter, he said that he would tie up the staff members to keep them from interfering, but they would not be harmed. He said that the act would be swift, and that afterwards he would turn himself in. At the end of the latter half of the letter, he signed his name again, this time with his address, telephone number, and the name of his employer. At some point, the letter was handed over to Tokyo police, who contacted the police in Sagamihara, which is the city, I should say, really. During this time frame, he posted to his Twitter account that he expected he might be arrested, and he had posted tweets about Japan being ravaged by radiation poisoning and AIDS. So it's safe to say that this guy has... What was that beeping? I just heard a weird beeping.
That was my...
Did you hear the beeping? Was it? Oh my god, why do you always do this to me? Like,
Jun's baking a cake.
Oh my god, I want a cake. Oh my god. If you can hear snoring as well, I promise it's not me or Josh, it's my dog. I don't know if it's picking it up or not, maybe not. Anyway, going back to the, this crazy guy. So, yeah, he wrote a letter, and in the letter, I would say it was quite, at first, at the start of the letter, he's saying, if the parents and the guardians of these people wish for it, then they should be euthanized, and that should be considered a legal thing. And then, throughout the letter, oh, bless you. That was a sneeze. Going through the letter, he just gets worse and worse and becomes more radicalized, and is like, do you know what? Screw the legislation and screw everything that's going to happen. Like, we don't want this to take long. I'll just do it myself. Oh, another sneeze. Bless you. Oh, that was a weird one. That was really weird. So, yeah, throughout this letter, he's just getting more and more insane. It starts off as we should consider this as a possibility and legalizing this. And then he's just like, do you know what? Just let me off and I'll do it myself. It's a bit insane. So, he went on the 26th of July at about 2:10 a.m. He went in and he went room to room, stabbing the victims in the necks. The police were called to the care centre by staff members at around 2:30. So 20 minutes after he'd gone in, which is, I don't know. I don't know if the staff members were in a different area and didn't know what was going on. So at 20 minutes later, they called. They reported a man with a knife breaking into the building. However, Uematsu had left the premises before being apprehended because he was recorded leaving the facility at 2:50 and the police only arrived there 10 minutes later. So the police were informed at 2:30 that a man with a knife had broken in, and it took them half an hour to get there.
Oh, wow. That's a poor
Which I think is insane because it's so bad because in Japan, there's little police stations everywhere that have police cars.
Yes.
And I don't know what they house in those police stations.
Yeah,
I don't know if they have the right
equipped
facilities
to
and
deal
stuff.
with, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, good point.
But I don't know, you would think it would be faster than half an hour.
Yeah.
It is a
that's
guy,
lot.
you know. So they went in at 3 a.m. and they discovered the crime scene. 29 ambulances were sent to the facility. 29. That was all the sirens I could
Yeah,
hear. It was
that's what
going on
you've
for
heard. That's
ages.
insane.
Yeah, yeah. Uematsu turned himself in at the Sukui police station 2 hours after the incident with a bag containing kitchen knives and other blood-stained sharp tools. The attack was described as one of the worst crimes committed on Japanese soil in modern history. So, in this crime, he allegedly killed 10 women and 9 men aged between 18 and 70 and injured 26 more. 13 were severely injured.
That's awful.
So he went in at 10 past 2, got out at 10 to 3. So in that like half an hour, 40 minutes, he killed 19 people and he injured 26 more people.
But can we just say that not through any other means, and that these people were sleeping. It's not that
Yeah.
he was like, suave or anything. He's not that. He's a piece of shit. To go in while they're sleeping and to
Yeah.
do this to them, to disable people, worse. That's horrendous. Terrible.
It's awful. Awful. So after this, neighbours expressed surprise that he had committed the murders, and he was described as friendly and outgoing and a good man.
Oh.
However, some people reported that his personality had undergone a change at some point during his employment at the facility.
Ooh.
So whilst he worked in the 3 years that he worked there, obviously something happened to him. He saw something or he experienced something that he hated. It changed who he was, and then it led him to commit these acts, which he thought was doing a service because he thought he was euthanizing people who didn't have a quality of life.
Fucking get a new job. Go to job centre and
I know.
print off.
He was
those
trained as
papers.
an elementary school teacher. Like he's a decent man at the beginning of this,
I love that 180 you just did.
Yeah.
He's a
know.
decent man and there's a dart of this.
I mean, if you're an elementary school teacher actually saying that, you never know. You just don't know.
Well, I mean, if he's that easily tipped over, thank God he wasn't a school teacher, because what would he have done to
I
the
know.
kids?
I know,
Horrendous.
exactly.
What a douchebag.
So in February 2017, he was found mentally competent to stand trial.
Good.
He was charged with 19 counts of murder, 24 counts of attempted murder, 2 counts of illegal confinement causing injury, 3 counts of illegal confinement, 1 count of unlawful entry, and 1 count of violating the Swords and Firearms Control Law.
Yes, give it us good.
A lot of shit going down here. A
Oh, I
lot
like
of shit.
that.
I got the pod cough.
Yeah.
His defense team said they planned to argue that he was mentally incompetent at the time of the crime due to the effects of marijuana.
Oh.
So if you don't know, weed in Japan is a huge no-no.
Yeah, it's a big no.
And it seems fairly innocent in, America and in the UK, really, It's not legal in the UK, but people still do it and they don't really get harsh sentences. But in America, it's legal in a lot of places in America now. It's not that big a deal. It's not as dangerous as alcohol. And yet alcohol is a massive thing in Japan.
Right. I do
Right?
love that they're like, he smoked pot and then that's it. He just
He
decided
smoked
he would
pot,
kill
and
people.
because he smoked pot, that's it. He went on a killing spree. So that's what they tried to claim. And then in 2019...
at least give us something good like LSD or,
I
at
know,
least,
I know. Give us some meth. Tell us he's on meth. Show me his teeth. Let me see them teeth. Right. In December 2019, Uematsu said he would admit to the crime during trial, saying that denying the charges against him would be, quote, would be quibbling and make the trial too complex, end quote.
Oh, yeah, because,
And then in January 2020, literally this year, isn't that weird? This year this happened.
Yeah.
He pleaded not guilty to the stabbings. So going complete 180 of what he just said, a couple months, 1 month before. At this point, the actual date, 23rd of December, he said, nah, I'd admit to it. And then on the 8th of January, he's like, nah, I'm pleading not guilty. It won me. It won me.
He's
won
like,
me.
I just heard Jess Price do a 180 and I'm about to
Yeah.
copy this beach.
So he pleaded not guilty. And then in February 2020, The prosecution announced that the death penalty was officially sought, saying that his rampage was inhumane and left no room for leniency. And in March 2020, why am I getting confused with that? Like, it's literally 2020. Like, why is that confusing to me? He was sentenced to death by the Yokohama District Court, having previously said he would not challenge any verdict or sentence. His death sentence was finalised on the 30th of March this year, and he withdrew automatic appeal to the upper court. So he has no appeal, he has no parole, he is going to die for this. Actually, he was sentenced to death on the day that I started my new job. Isn't that cool?
Wow.
I like significant dates.
Kind of creepy, but wow.
So yeah, that was the case of that was the case of the Sagamihara stabbings that happened in 2016.
I'm gonna save all of my thoughts until you've done all three, because I realise that I've already taken a lot of time. So
no, this is going to be an extra long podcast, so everyone just buckle up, okay? Look, we missed last Saturday, so
True.
you know this is coming in. You've got extra, and if you haven't got enough time to listen to it all, just pause it. Like, there's no harm.
Oh yeah.
Just pause. Yeah. Come back to it later. Do you know what? I like to listen to it. This is really sad, but I like to listen to myself and you speaking, like when I'm in the car. And like, you know, I have to get out of the car. I just pause and then I carry on as if nothing happened.
Have you seen the picture of the guy?
I have seen a picture of the guy, yes.
It's like,
we'll put it up on Twitter. He looks do you know what, the picture of the guy scares me more because he looks normal.
That is exactly what I was just gonna say. What's worse is that he just doesn't.
He looks like someone I would walk past in the street and not bat an eyelid at. Like, he just looks so regular and normal.
Creeper.
Okay. Next thing that happened. This happened while we both lived in the area.
I can't remember which one this one is.
So this is the Zama slayings. And that's what it's known as, the Zama slayings, okay? And this happened in 2017. So we both lived in Sagamihara at this point.
I just know that these are like, we're going so south. Like, I hate these next two.
I don't know. I think, like, they're all equal. Yeah, there's not as much information on the next two anyway.
Okay, give it as good. Go on.
So in the Zama slayings, basically, this guy called Takahiro Shiraishi, he was living in an apartment in Zama. And Zama is a city southwest of Tokyo. And it's like on the border between Sagamihara and Tokyo. I think it's technically in Kanagawa prefecture, which is the same as Sagamihara. So it's one of those, it depends where you live in Zama. It could be classed as, you know, Tokyo or Sagamihara. It depends.
Okay.
So, but just to point out, Zama is not far from where we lived. This is why I included this word. So technically it might be Tokyo, but it's like, 10 minutes on a train from where we lived? Mm-hmm. If that. So, yeah, he was living in an apartment in Zama. He put out an advert. Josh is just pulling a funny face at me, so I just lost my thing.
I'm getting super heebie-jeebies. Go on.
He put out an advertisement asking people to come to his house so he could watch them commit suicide. He offered to either assist or watch them kill themselves. A friend of his indicated that he had indulged in choking games with school friends, and signs of his later victims indicated that they had been choked to death. So basically, that's basically it. He put out this advertisement and he offered people to come and kill themselves in his apartment in Zama.
Okay.
Before his move to Zama, he worked as a kaori scouto, which is someone, they literally call them a scout who lures women into brothels to work in the sex industry. Yeah, it's absolutely vile. So basically, even in our town, like the closest city to where we lived, when we went to the city, there was these awful looking men who just looked terrifying, and they always looked out of the ordinary, didn't they? And they used to just stand around and they would watch everyone walk past, and then if there was a pretty girl on their own, they would pounce. And they would try and ask them to come to this bar, come and sit in this bar with us. And it was basically, they wanted, in our town, it wasn't so much to work in the sex industry, I don't think. but I didn't understand enough to know. But the impression I got when I asked Japanese friends what they were doing was that they would ask these pretty girls to come and sit in this bar because it would entice other men to come in and they would get more business. Yeah, it's absolutely revolting. So Josh is pulling like a weird face and he's like, he's creeped out.
It gives me such heebie-jeebies. Oh God, it's so... Ugh,
Yeah,
like,
I remember us like
alone.
every time we walked past these people, we would watch for as long as we could, because if any girl got talked to by them, we were gonna pounce on them. We were gonna go save that girl because it's horrible.
Yeah, 100%.
And they were there every night, every single night. It was disgusting. Anyway, so he worked in the Kabukicho district, which is Tokyo's biggest red light district. And at this stage, people had started warning the locals about him, describing him as the creepy scout. He then moved from Tokyo into an apartment in Zama in August 2017. So apparently he was very creepy, and like it became like known around the area that like you don't want to go near this guy.
Okay.
So how he got found out is the brother of a missing woman started an investigation on his own to find his sister, and a different woman assisted him by contacting Shiraishi and setting up a fake appointment, and then they both involved the police and like went to the appointment with the police basically.
Okay.
The police then arrived at the apartment and asked where the missing woman was, and Shiraishi straight away indicated that she was in the freezer. Police then found 9 dead bodies in the house, all of which had been dismembered, in 3 cooler boxes and 5 large storage boxes. Police found heads, legs, and arms of his victims. Vile. Neighbours had been complaining recently and sort of confirmed that there was foul smells of rotting flesh coming from the house. Yeah, disgusting. Shiraishi had discarded elements of the people into his bin, which had been taken away by the recycling rubbish. Yeah. 8 of the 9 of his victims were women in their late teens to early 20s. 3 of these girls were just high school girls. All who answered his ad to be assisted in suicide. It's really sad. Police investigation confirmed the missing woman had been walking with the alleged murderer on the 23rd of October. And Shiraishi confessed to killing and dismembering the 9 people. And he told his father that his life had no meaning before he committed the murders. He claimed his motive was sex, and he wanted to use the victims' vulnerable states to manipulate and sexually assault them, fulfilling his fantasies and not having to worry about them denying his advances. So that was his reason.
Oh, it's so dark. Like, who does this?
Yeah, and I remember I only found out about this because a Japanese friend of mine who I worked in school with, asked me if I knew about it, because she knew that I liked crime and I read about it and stuff. And she was like, oh, did you hear about it? And I was like, no, because I didn't watch Japanese news because I didn't understand it, and I didn't read the newspaper and stuff. So she told me about it, but she wouldn't discuss it. She told me to look into it because I would be interested, but she was not open to have a conversation with me about it at all. Which is, I think, fair to say. A lot of people in Japan don't like that. Like, they don't want to talk about it. It's not, But yeah, that's how I found out about that. That happened so close to us. Isn't that scary?
So, like, people's vulnerable moments. Gross. Awful.
Yeah, what a
awful.
piece of shit.
Just terrible.
I don't know anything about his sentence yet.
His trial. Might not.
Yeah,
has it already happened?
Yeah. I think it would have started, but there's no public information at the moment that I could find. Might be now. The last time I looked was like...
The heebie-jeebs to the max. I am so freaked out.
So, the last one that I have... this happened only last year. And it was only just over a year ago. And this one is really, I don't know. For me, the Sagamihara stabbings, the first one, is more connected to me because I heard all the sirens. I was awake that night. That's when that happened. I felt very weirdly connected to that. This one is more connected to both of us, and it's like it was more creepy, that this
Yeah, this
happened.
one's like, I'm not emotionally ready.
Well, I'll go through it quite quick because it's not much information at
Okay.
all anyway.
Okay, sure.
So basically, in 2019, on the 28th of May, in the Tama ward of Kawasaki City in Kanagawa Prefecture, just outside of Noborito Station, which is a massive commuter station on the way to Tokyo, which during this time when this happened, I passed almost every day.
We both used
Um,
frequently.
yes, it's a station that we both not like visited, but it was on the
Mm.
line, and we would always stop at that station. It was a
And like
huge
pass
commuter
it. Yeah.
station, right? So yeah, it's a really busy line as well. Like this train line is so busy, and a lot of people go to this station. So basically, on the morning that this happened, this guy called Ryuichi, what is it, Josh? I can't say it.
I don't even know.
Ryuichi, Iwasaki. Let's call him Iwasaki.
Okay.
A 51-year-old man was suspected of carrying out an attack. He was found lying on the ground of the scene, bleeding from a self-inflicted stab wound to the neck. There were 2 bloodied knives found nearby, and 2 more knives, which was an all-purpose knife and a sashimi knife. And sashimi is like a fish knife. A sashimi knife is like a sushi knife, kind of. They were found in a backpack that had been in his possession, dropped at a nearby Family Mart, which is a convenience store that's everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, this guy went to a bus stop with young elementary school children waiting for their bus to go to their local school, and he started attacking them, and he was stabbing them, and then he stabbed himself. And that's basically what happened. Yeah. So the fire department said that it received an emergency call at 8:15 and responded to an incident in which a man attacked students waiting at a bus stop with long knives used to prepare sashimi in both hands. The students targeted were identified by the NHK public broadcaster as all being girls. A bus driver who witnessed the attack claimed that they saw the man holding the 2 knives and he had walked towards the bus before stabbing the children. Authorities told reporters the man attacked people randomly as they lined up to the bus, but the Kawasaki Fire Department reported that 16 elementary school students from Caritas Elementary School, a private Catholic school, and 3 adults were injured in the attack. So there's no one wants to clearly decide what he was doing, but it's widely speculated that it was a targeted attack because these kids were going to a Catholic private school.
Okay.
And this bus stop that he went to was their bus stop, where their private school bus came every day to pick them up.
Yikes.
And he knew that, and he specifically went to this bus stop to attack these students. So it's like no one wants to put a sort of... I don't know how to explain. Like, no one wants to put a discrimination claim on it that he was targeting these people, and it was kind of like a terrorist attack or a hate crime.
Right.
But it basically was.
Yeah, it's
because
it's hard to prove now that he's dead what his motive was, but
Right.
looking at the evidence, you would suspect.
Yeah. So 2 people were murdered. One was an adult male, and one was an 11-year-old girl. And 18 others were injured. Most of them were children. And then he killed himself. And that's not included in the people that he murdered. So 3 people dead overall, including himself. 18 injured. And that was the Kawasaki stabbings in 2019. That morning, actually, that was the one day that week that I didn't have to go to school.
Yeah.
Which was really weird. And I was at home, and I was awake anyway. And I got a call from our boss at the time. and he called me to say, like, because he knew that I would have to go that way, and I've been having a lot of problems with the trains anyway, and so he knew that I was on that line, so he called me to say that this had happened and I should be really careful and probably find a different way around. But did you have to go past that day? Because I texted you straight away. As soon as I found out, I texted you and I was like, whoa, like, please don't go this way. It's not safe.
I can't remember, to be honest, but I don't think I went that way on that particular day, but I remember it happening in the morning because it was so awful. It's that, I don't know. I think, I mean, we're dealing with, in these three stories, we're dealing with suicidal people who are very vulnerable, disabled people who are very vulnerable, and children are really vulnerable. So it's like, it's just, you know, it can't, it's that stupid phrase where it's like, pick on someone your own size.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Terrible.
Yeah, so that was the 3 crimes that happened in our area whilst we lived there.
Cursed. You cursed.
I know. And as soon as I left, what's happened since? Nothing. Nothing's happened since. It's just me. I just curse everyone.
Wow.
True though, isn't it?
I mean, it's interesting because those things did happen while we're here, and because we're crimies, we're crime junkies. It's, I don't know. It's weird to not feel. I mean, but it's weird to be in the same neighbourhood or something like that. Especially when you don't hear about it so often, being like around you, and then it happens like the 3.5 years you're here 3 times. It's kind of, it's sad. It's weird.
It's really weird because we always read about crime. We always have, but like you always read about crimes that happened. Like I would read about, okay, this happened in Manchester, or this happened in London, or this happened in America. The things that happen in your town whilst you live there are terrifying, and it makes it all the more, like, it sounds bad to say, but you have this disconnection to everything else that you read when it happens far away at a different time. Like, when I read about crimes in the 70s, I read about it like, oh my god, this is, like, fascinating. But reading about something that happened in your time, whilst you were an adult and understood completely what was going on, that happened down the road from you, is upsetting, and it takes away the element of like fascination and like this is part of history. It's more real, which sounds horrible.
It's almost I totally understand what you mean, and it's worse because you can picture when you read the story, it's no longer this, I hate to say it like this, but it's no longer like a crime novel anymore. It's no longer this real life thing that you can be like, oh, that's awful, we have to prevent these things. It's like, oh, I can picture that road, I can picture that place. Like I've been really weird, so creepy.
Yeah.
And like I've never looked at things that are like around me. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's always been like really distant, really far. So, I got so heebie-jeebs.
Okay, we're going to take another short break, a second, and then we're going to come back and we're going to talk about something a little bit more real that needs to be said in the Japan special.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, so we're going to take a break.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll see you in a minute.
Okay.
Okay, welcome back, guys. Sorry about that, but I was busting for a wee and I had to go. It's unusual for us to have 2 breaks, but I needed to go. You could probably hear my voice getting like, okay, let's go for a break, because I was going to die. I was genuinely afraid that I was going to wet myself in my chair. Okay, so now we're going to sort of go back to the question that we were asked on Twitter. So Karen asked Josh what it was like to be LGBTQ+ in Japan. And she asked me what I miss about Japan. And it sort of brought up all these weird feelings. And it sort of brought up a realization of why I don't miss a fucking thing from Japan. It sounds harsh to say that, but it's how I felt. Like, my immediate response was like, I don't miss a fucking thing. Like, no. There's nothing that I miss from Japan. And we had to sort of stand back and think, like, why? Like, why am I feeling so aggressive towards it? And why do I feel so adamant? So, basically, we're going to talk about what happened to me in Japan. And it's a hard subject in a way, like especially hard for me and Josh because we lived it, and at the time neither of us realized the severity of what was going on, and neither of us realized what to do about it until it was too late and I was already gone. So what I will say is that my life is so much better in the UK, and I feel so much happier and safer in the UK. But I do miss Josh with like everything that I am, like every day. And he's the only thing, him and Jun are the only thing that I miss about Japan, really. So, whilst I was in Japan, or let's start before that, actually. I was told when I found out that I was going to move to Japan because I got a job, I was told that Japan was really safe. And I was told that I didn't have to worry about anything because Japan is so safe. And I just want everyone listening to know that that's not the truth. That is only true if you are an Asian man or a white man. That's when Japan's safe. And I know that statistically the crime rates are lower and, all this sort of thing. I know statistics are there that sort of match up the whole Japan is safe theory. And yeah, like you can trust people more like with your stuff. Like if you fall asleep on the train holding your stuff, like in London, you might wake up with no stuff. But in Japan, no one's going to touch your stuff. Like people leave their phones on tables in restaurants to go to the toilet, which you could never do here. That remains partially true. I'm not saying you should do that if you ever go to Japan, because you don't know. But, we saw clear examples of that all the time. But Japan is not safe for women, and it is especially not safe for foreign women, especially white women. And I experienced a lot of harassment and a lot of assaults, and I was stalked for about 2 years by an American man, and then I was also stalked for a number of months by a Japanese man. And for the longest time when I lived in Japan, I really downplayed it to myself, and I told myself that it wasn't that bad, and it was only because I was foreign and interesting. And I told myself it was because I was chubby, and that makes it interesting. Or because I have blue eyes, and that's interesting. Or I told myself it's because I have big boobs, and that's interesting. But the truth is, it is not an excuse to do anything to someone. What they look like or where they come from does not give you the right to touch them. And it does not give you the right to believe you have some claim over them and that they need to teach you English or they need to add you on like Line, which is like WhatsApp in Japan. So I would honestly say that if you're a woman and you're considering going to Japan, I would, in my experience, say that it is not safe. And if you want to visit Japan, please take a trusted male friend, because I didn't find it safe to walk outside on my own as a girl in Japan. Now I'll go into some detail about some incidents that happened to sort of solidify this. So I'll talk about the stalking first. So in 2017, I think it was, when Josh lived, in my town and everything was getting so much better because me and Josh were together all the time, we used to go to Starbucks a lot, which was right in between our houses. One day when we were going to go to Starbucks, I got there first. Because I don't know, if you know me, you know that I'm like one of those people that I have to be somewhere an hour before I'm actually supposed to be there so I can actually relax. So I got there first and it was full. This Starbucks is quite a busy Starbucks and it was full and there was no seats anywhere. And there was an American man and his daughter sat in the corner, and I got my drink and I was going to go wait for Josh outside, and this man started calling me over saying, oh, there's a spare seat with us, like at his table, so you can sit with us, it's totally fine. And I felt a bit like, I'm a very confident person, I'm a very strong female. I really believe like I can hold my own in a lot of situations, so I didn't really think anything of it at the time. So I went to go sit with them, but I made sure I sat with the daughter, rather than sit on his side of the table. And I don't know why I did that, but I did. So for about half an hour before Josh got there, me and this guy were talking. We were talking mostly about his daughter. She was lovely. She lived in Paris, so she was only visiting, and he lived in Japan with his Japanese wife, and he had two daughters, and both of them lived away. So most of the time he said he was on his own. He owned a school, like a private English school.
Yeah.
Then Josh came, and we were all having like a sort of pleasant time, weren't we? We were like, I would say it was like an okay time. And he started whispering things to Josh, and I took nothing. I just ignored it. And then they left, and to be honest, I didn't think much of it. He asked for my phone number, and I thought it was more about his English school and possibly getting a job there, like an extra job, than anything else. And then he left, and later on he sent me a message saying that he really enjoyed meeting me, and that I was really pretty, and that he really wanted to see me again, which I thought was really fucking weird. So to cut a long story short, that's how I met this guy, and then he started messaging me a lot and saying that he really wanted to see me, and could I not be with Josh this time, and I blocked him, because, that's really weird, isn't it? Like, I didn't like it. And I told you about it, and we were like, yeah, just block him. It turns out that he would drive around the area of Starbucks, and he would look for me, because he couldn't contact me. And I didn't know it at the time. I didn't have a car in Japan. I only walked around at this point. No, we had a bike, and I used to cycle around the area to get to shops, to get to Starbucks, to get to Josh's, just doing normal life things. And I didn't realise that he had been out looking for me and to find out where I lived. The next time I saw him was actually on our joint birthday. And he was waiting in the Starbucks car park. And he told me, because he called me over to the car, and he was like, I can't describe it, because a lot of people will listen and think, why would I go over to the car? Why would I go over? But it's really hard in the situation when your mind's rationalizing, telling you, no, everything's fine. He just wants to say hi. And you're being shouted at across a car park, and everyone's staring at you, and you feel very put on the spot. It's really difficult. I went over, and that's when he told me that sometimes he waited in the car park in case I came, that he sat in Starbucks longer than he should because I might turn up. And that's when he told me that he would drive around because he wanted to see me again. And he said that he was really sorry that he had deleted my number. Can I have your number again? And I was scared. And I was scared because at this point he had got me inside the car. And he was demanding that he give me a lift to Josh's, because I had a big birthday present in my bike for Josh. I had Starbucks that I was bringing to us, as a birthday present in the morning. And he was like, I'll give you a lift. Let me buy you something for your birthday. And he wouldn't let me out of the car. And the only choice I had was to quickly direct him to Josh's so I could get out. And at the time, again, my mind was just rationalizing, thinking he's just really lonely and he's a bit messed up and I'll be fine. Everything's fine. So, but he was telling me that he would drive around to look for me, and that he knew that I lived in this specific area. He just didn't know where. Would I tell him where I lived? And I was like, no. I directed him to near Josh's house, but I wouldn't direct him to where Josh lived. And I was like, okay, I've got to go now. And I basically opened the car door while it was still moving. And thankfully, thank God, Jun, Josh's partner, just completely by coincidence, was walking towards me. And I got out of the car and Jun looked so shocked. He was like, what on earth? Who is that? What are you doing? And I ran towards Jern and I was like, just turn around and take me back in the house. And I was like, you know, really frightened. And I got to Josh's and I told Josh that basically this guy had offered me money to come to his house, and he had offered me money to perform sexual acts on him and to do things that he wanted me to do. And I said no, that I wasn't comfortable doing that. And he said, well, think about it, think about it. And he made me give him his number. He wouldn't let me get out the car until he had my number. And at the time, when I told Josh, we laughed about it and we were saying, how much? How much was he offering? How much was he offering? Oh, it's not enough. Oh, it's not enough. I won't do it. And it was because it was our way of sort of downplaying for our own peace of mind. And I hold absolutely no resentment. It's not Josh's fault or anything that we didn't do anything, because at the time we couldn't realize what had happened seriously enough, because that would have meant that it was really scary and it was really serious that this guy had trapped me in his car and asked me to do these things and demanded my phone number, you know. So anyway, a few times after this, he would find me as I was walking down main roads, and he would pull up in front of me on the path, so I couldn't get past. I couldn't cross the road to get away from him, and he would tell me to get in his car. And I basically felt like I had no other choice, because I was stopping traffic. I was being shouted at in the street. I felt very on the spot. So I would get in his car a few times. And one time he even exposed himself to me, which again, I really played off. But now I realise how much it affected me. This went on for a number of years. And it was so much more serious than I ever let myself believe at the time. Now, in 2019, only last year, and early 2019, I would say around February time, I was coming up to the end of the school year, and I was in a school that I had worked in for 3 years that I loved and adored, and I had lots of friends in this school. And the teachers were my friends. And this guy, the American guy, he somehow managed to find my Facebook page, and he had sent me a lot of messages saying that he loved me and that he missed me and I won't speak to him and he doesn't know why. By chance, I found these messages because I'm not friends with him on Facebook, so it had gone into a separate sort of file. I clicked on them and I not accidentally opened the messages. I opened them to be like, what the fuck is this? As soon as he saw that I had read those messages, he started ringing my phone through Facebook, which means to me that he was watching that chat for me to open those messages. He then didn't stop calling for so long that I couldn't do anything on my phone. I could only lock my phone. I couldn't hang up fast enough. He kept calling back. I couldn't get off the chat. So he just kept saying that I was looking at the messages and stuff, because the amount of times he would ring me. In the end, I turned my phone off and I was shaking and crying, and I got to school having a panic attack. I went straight to the first teacher that I was close to, and I explained to that teacher, who was a Japanese man, that I was being stalked and this man had found me again, and I was really scared and I didn't know where he was. And I was scared in case he was gonna track me or something. My mind was oh, he's gonna find me because I've answered the phone or something like that, because I couldn't hang up. And the teacher told me that it wasn't that bad and that I should just not worry about it. And he was like, no, don't worry, it's fine. And he was laughing. And I thought, oh, okay, he just doesn't understand my English. So I went to a different teacher who I was really close friends with. And she was one of my best friends in Japan. And I knew that she understood. And she said the same thing. And she said, don't worry about it. It's not even that bad. And she just laughed it off in my face. whilst I was in tears. And that really solidified to me that I couldn't ask for help. Like, no one was going to help me in Japan. Because when I needed it, no one came to help me. So yeah, I just downplayed it. And I told myself that, it probably isn't that bad. I'm probably just worked up about it. And, I'm super strong. Like, I'm a really strong girl. Like, I'm totally fine. And I can still do everything on my own. And I didn't realise, but I became a very aggressive person because of this. I became so outwardly aggressive because I was so afraid every time I went outside. And I started saying things like, oh, if people look at me, I'm going to just smash them. I'll just fucking punch them. Like, oh, don't even look at me. And that was like common. That was like something I said all the time. And I only realize now, when I feel so much safer, that I only said that because I felt so on edge all the time being outside. Whether I was on my own or whether I was with someone, I just felt so on edge that something was going to happen. And I'd love to say that this was an isolated incident, but it's really not, because this happened so much. I'm not saying I got stalked a lot. I got stalked by 2 different people. But I got assaulted in the street walking to school once. This was in my first year in school, and I was walking towards my school at 7:30 a.m. The streets were dead, and a group of drunk men and 1 woman came out of a bar at 7:30 a.m. and 1 man came over to me and grabbed my tits. And I slapped him away, and I text my friends, and we just didn't know what to do. We just didn't know what to do. That was in my first year, and I downplayed that. When I was in school once, a 3rd grade male student, also grabbed my tits. And I told my boss, and she said, am I okay? And I didn't know that I wasn't okay. And I was like, yeah, because I was afraid that I was going to get sacked or moved or something like that. And then she always brought it up to me and laughed it off. But really, that was quite serious. And a lot of times when I got on the train, if I sat down, people would put their hands on my legs. Men would put their hands on my leg and on my thigh. If trains were crowded, I got touched a lot on crowded trains because men think they can get away with it. Men tried to put their arms around me. They touched my bum. They touched my boobs. 1 man he put his hand between my legs from behind and pushed into my vagina, which was really serious. And I told my boss about it, and I didn't even get a reply. So yeah, I really felt like I didn't have anyone. And every time that this happened, no one that was around came to help. No one that saw these incidents in the supermarket or on the street or on the train did anything. They would watch, they saw it happen, they did not get involved. And that's the thing that hurts me the most about Japan, is that no one wanted to protect me. No one tried to help me apart from Josh and apart from Jun. And that's why I say that it's unsafe. And I would argue that the UK is also unsafe. But the one time that I was assaulted in the UK, I was assaulted by a drunk man who tried to push me into an alleyway to possibly rape me. And I was terrified. And I was in university. I lived in Cornwall. I was really close to my house. But 5 people rushed out of a nearby chip shop and grabbed him off me, and they tried to help me, and I ran away and I ran home. And that is why I feel fundamentally safer in the UK, and that's why my life is so much better in the UK, because I know that 90% of people in the UK will rush to help me if they see this happen. And this is why I felt so unsafe in Japan in the end, and like I couldn't go out on my own, was because 90% of the people would not come to help me in Japan. And I want to use this platform to warn people, especially women, that all is not true what you hear about Japan. Okay? It's not this safe haven where nothing bad happens. Wow, that was loud.
Sorry, I'm having a bit of a
Josh
time.
just blew his nose, and his mic is off, so you didn't hear it, but I did. So yeah, I just want to warn you, because even like, and people might listen to this and argue that maybe what I was wearing was revealing, or maybe I looked like super friendly and approachable. And if that's the case, like whatever, I could have been out there with my tits bared. It does not give anyone the right to touch me. And I would argue that if I look approachable, this happened to me in a supermarket that's close to my house. In a supermarket, okay? I had my headphones in. I was doing grocery shopping. And this is where my second stalker started. And he came over to me from behind, and he was about, I don't know, between 70 and 80 years old. An old Japanese man. He tapped me on the shoulder, and I looked back. I did not want to engage in conversation. I'm just doing my shopping. He then took it upon himself to pull my headphone out because he wanted to talk to me. So I was forced to talk to him. He demanded that I give him my phone number because he wanted to learn English from me. I said that I wasn't really sure and that I didn't really want to, and I'm not a private English teacher. I just work in schools. And he said he wouldn't let go of my arm, and I had no choice but to give him a number. I tried to give him a fake number, but he wouldn't let go of my arm until he rang the number and saw my phone ring. So I was literally forced to give him my correct number. A lot of people walked past and were watching this, and I knew in my head that if I retaliated or pulled my arm away forcefully, that I could possibly be arrested for assaulting an old man, because they would not look kindly on me in this supermarket being a young foreign girl to an old Japanese man. So I knew that I had no standing, that I couldn't move. I had to just do what he said to get out of the situation. I then gave him my number and he rang me. I said, yeah, okay, well, we'll talk later. And I had every intention of blocking his number. Then I moved down an aisle and I turned a corner and I put my headphone back in, and he would not stop calling my phone even though I had just walked away. I kept hanging up and I was trying to block his call when he came up to me again, pulled out my headphones again, grabbed me on the arm and asked why I didn't answer his call. I said, because I'm shopping. And then he grabbed my boob and tapped it twice. And then he left. I was so shaken up, but I decided that I was just going to finish my shopping and get out. I put my phone in my pocket. I put my headphones back in. I carried on. When I got to the till, he was sending me messages in Japanese saying, I'm waiting in the car, come to the car. This is my car. And he was describing his car to me. I blocked his number. I hid in a different shop for a while because I was so scared that he was waiting outside for me, just like my other stalker used to wait around outside Starbucks for me. And after about half an hour of hiding in a coffee shop, I finally decided that I was going to get on my bike and just go home as fast as I could. And I went home and I locked the door and I pulled all the shutters across and I just sat in the dark for ages because I couldn't believe it was happening again. And the same thing happened with that man in later weeks, that he drove around and he would park on the paths to block me from going past, asking me to get in the car. And he knew that I lived in this area, so he would drive around this area waiting for me. And no one in that store helped me. No shopkeeper that was stacking shelves that were around decided to intervene. No member of the public, young or old, decided that I was worth protecting in that instance. And that's why I think that Japan is unsafe, and that's why I don't miss Japan. And I really hope that people know that I'm not saying a whole nation and a whole culture is the same. And I really hope that's the truth, because I don't want it to be that everyone is like that. What I'm saying is, in my personal and extensive experience, this is what happened, and this is what has led me to hate Japan in a way. And I don't ever want to go back. And if I did, I would only go back if Josh needed me to. But I would honestly only go back if I had a taser or some other way to protect myself. Because I just feel like it's really not safe, and you don't hear about it, and you deserve to hear about it. Everyone deserves to hear that this country that is put on a pedestal for being the safest country on earth and nothing bad happens in Japan, it's just not true. And you deserve to know it. That if you're going to Japan, please be careful. And please know that you don't owe anyone anything. And you don't have to listen to this stereotype of, oh, foreign people are the worst people in Japan, and that's why they can treat you like that. It's not true, okay? You can act how you need to act in Japan. It doesn't matter that you're foreign. You don't have to protect the stereotype. You can fight back. And please know that if this happens to you in Japan, which I really, really fucking hope it doesn't, but if it does, you do not downplay it like I did, and you do not tell yourself that it's not that bad, because it will affect you in later life, which it has affected me. And that's what I want to say. Yeah. That's all I really have to say, is I don't miss Japan, and that's why. And I really hope that you take from this that everything you hear because you want to hear it is not true.
It's like heartbreaking to listen to. And like, my initial reaction is like, I feel a lot of guilt because I would have done something and I would have intervened, and we have always been very, very aware of our surroundings, and that if anyone needed help, we would intervene. So, like, to know that my best mate had that kind of stuff happen is heartbreaking, and how it affected her is heartbreaking. Like still something very raw and very emotional to like talk about, to be honest. And you are right, when a lot of stuff happened, I think I don't even know. I just think as a defense, and because it's scary, you have to make it unscary. That's really dumb, isn't it? But you have to make it
Yeah.
that wasn't frightening. That's not frightening, because if it's frightening,
Yeah.
then you have to deal with something scary, and that at the time feels harder than putting it in a box and leaving it there. But wherever you are and whoever you are, what you just heard and what you take away from Jess's story, from my perspective, you reach out, and if you need someone, me, you go find me, because I'm that bitch. I'm from fucking Birmingham and I'll cut a hoe. And you need someone to go with you to make a statement, I'm the one. And you need someone to support you, I am the one. I can't, Men, I'm not great. I'm gay, and I'm not even great with men. The whole situation of someone feeling like they can touch you, so not okay. And only you know how it made you feel. And I said this earlier. It has nothing to do with, how you feel is how you feel, and no one can change that. Nobody can mold that into something different. If you feel threatened or scared, then it's real. That's real for you. It doesn't matter what else happened. And the only thing I can take away from this, like,
Yeah.
just it's just the worst thing to know your friend like had this situation happen, is just to be more vigilant of the people around you, and to pick up on signs that, oh, actually, maybe this isn't a funny, oh, look at this, like, person being a twat. Like, maybe this isn't.
Yeah. I think, we always, both of us, me included, like, we always laughed it off because it was the only way to survive. Like, how could I go outside if I had accepted how scary this actually was? How could I keep going to work every day knowing that I was probably going to get assaulted on the train, sexually assaulted on the train, without laughing it off? But the only time that I realised that what I had gone through was quite serious and it had affected me was when, I hope she doesn't mind me saying this, I won't mention her name, but a friend of mine who I used to work with this year in the UK got sexually assaulted at work and sexually harassed. And I felt so innately angry and disgusted, and I refused to let it happen in front of me. And so I went downstairs where I saw it happening, and I protected her, and I tried to stand between her and the man. And after that, when she tried to downplay it and she said, no, it's fine, I feel sorry for him, he doesn't know what he's doing, I said, no, this is not okay. And this will not happen in front of me. And we will report this and he will be punished. And it was from then on that I realised that I did everything that I could to protect my friend. Why the hell didn't I do that to myself?
I think, like,
And
that's how I feel.
from then, I had to allow myself to accept that these things that happened were serious. Like, this seriously happened, and people deserve to know about it, and they deserve to be warned about it, and most of all, I deserve to accept that this happened to me. And that's okay. It doesn't make me less of a strong girl. I'm still a strong woman, and I'm still like mega feminist, and I will fucking, fight for women's rights till the day I die, because we are equal and we can do anything that a man can do. And I will forever fight for men to be held accountable for their actions. There is no boys will be boys in my world. There is no sexual assault in my world, because I will do everything to fight against that. Men will not get away with this anymore. Not me. And I don't know why I didn't think I deserved that myself when I lived in Japan. I really don't. And I regret that myself. And you don't have to feel any guilt, because we did what we needed to do to survive. We did what we needed to do to get through every day, because no one else was going to help us, Josh. It was just me and you, you know? And we couldn't take this on ourselves. It was too much. And now I feel stronger, and I don't feel any less of a woman for having this happen to me. I feel
Like,
more angered to change it.
I genuinely hope that being able to speak on it allows you to heal. You know,
Yeah.
I think it's the worst thing to have to carry with you. I think that it is, like, and I'm going to be so honest with you. It's not until very recently that I even knew it took a toll on you in the way that it did.
Yeah.
The fact that you, and I know this sounds very, like, I don't know if it's cliche or, like, well timed, but I know when that happened with someone that you worked with, and I know that when you went to defend them, and I saw the texts and like everything around it, and looking back on it
Yeah.
now, I'm so, I'm very proud of the fact that you could take an experience and like meld something dark into like this wonderful shield for someone else. I think it's amazing, and it's looking back so many times. I think people thought we were a couple. So
Mhm.
there's the time I was with you, like, of course it wouldn't have happened. Like, you know, I think people probably would. I don't know. I think in most places people would be more nervous, and a woman on her own, I guess, is considered more vulnerable. But you know, I in however you are able to deal with this, please know, and everybody know that like I would go to the very end and do something to protect someone in this situation. Like,
Yeah.
you know, I don't think it's
Yeah.
okay, and I yeah, but I appreciate you telling your story because I think it's a really
Yeah.
important thing to tell women anywhere that the slightest the slightest thing that could seem quite, I don't know, something easy to brush off at the time might, and if it does hurt, that's totally okay. Like, if later on, if someone touching your leg on a train doesn't feel serious enough at the time, but later on haunts you, that's okay. You can talk out about it. That's an okay feeling to have. You don't have to feel ashamed that you didn't, deal with it at the time, or you didn't know how to cope with it at the time. That's not your fault. That is somebody
Yeah.
else's evil on touching somebody that we don't deal with, and we protect each other. And I mean that in everything that's happening at the moment. This is so well timed as a message to look out
Yeah.
for each other, and no one should feel alone. No one should feel like someone's not going to help them, and
Yeah.
we're not the fucking ones.
Exactly. And if you ever experience something and you want to talk to someone, you can DM us on Twitter or
Yeah.
Facebook. If you want help and you don't know how to get help, you can talk to us because I will find out, and I know Josh will. We will find out how to help. I don't care where you are in the world, I will find out how to help you.
Yeah.
And to end on a more positive note, because this has been a really long podcast and it's been quite upsetting to a degree. To end on a more positive note, I just want everyone to know that I have gone, it's hard to say, but like, I miss Josh so much, but leaving Japan was the best decision I ever made. And I felt so weirdly trapped in Japan, like I would never be myself. I would never make it if I came back. I had no money, nowhere to live. Like, you'd have to move back with my parents. It felt like going back a step. But I have never felt so happy to be an adult in my life. I have an amazing job that I love, which I can't wait to go back to. I have amazing friends that I love, strong women. I have Josh, who's
A
my,
strong
he's
woman,
like my
excuse
twin.
me.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing as well, is that I'm just surrounded by like strong people and, like
Well, you
I'll
also
name them as well.
you
Katie,
also are a
Annie,
strong person.
Jodie, Freya, yeah. And I surround myself with strong women and I love them so much and I get to see them all the time, which is nice. And I feel like I was walking through my town centre the other day and I felt so much more free. And I just felt so happy to be able to walk through my town alone and not feel angry for no reason and not feel scared. So I just want to end it on a positive note that my life is so much better now and I'm much happier now. Even though I have, like, everyone has dark moments, everyone feels a bit depressed, everyone gets their moments, that's totally normal and fine. But fundamentally, my life is so much better in the UK and I love it and I don't miss Japan. And I feel like if anyone listens in Japan who might feel like I felt, like, oh, if I go home now, I'll be going back steps. It's not true. Like, you will change, and your life will change, and it's just, you have to take a chance. It might be for the better, it might be for the worse, but you don't know. You have to take that chance, and it counts for anyone. You know, if you're in a situation where you feel stuck and you don't feel happy, but you're scared to change, you've got to take a chance, because your life, there's like 60%, 80% maybe chance that your life will get better because you changed it. So that's how I want to end. Okay? Is that everyone know that all that shit happened to me, yes, and it has affected me, and I will continue to deal with it. But I am the strongest fucking woman you will ever come across. And I don't take shit for no one. Okay? And I will always be like that. And all that shit that happened to me, as much as it affects me, it will never stop me from being happy now. Okay?
I think
Okay.
I appreciate you telling your story, and all I have to say is, Jesse, I bloody love you.
I love you too. Okay, bye. Bye. We'll see you next week.